It began with 12 teams on June 6th, and after 19 days and over 2,000 minutes of football, just 2 teams remained at the Soldier Field in Chicago. Yes, the USA and Mexico contested the 2007 Gold Cup final for the 3rd time in history. And speaking of finals, tonight is the final of Inside the Gold Cup. My name is Dennis Katsanos. With me, 2 men I'm actually really going to miss. I mean it, guys. I'm going to miss Sepp Messing and John Harks, 2 of the finest men in the world, and 2 buddies that I can probably call me mate, as we would say back home.
I'm going to miss you too, Dennis. We're going to miss you, man.
I have no comment. We're going to miss you.
Dennis, right here, mate. Right here, son.
I'll tell you what, boys. When we previewed the semis, we anticipated possibly the USA and Mexico going through. It ended up being the final. What were you expecting from the final, Shep?
Well, Dennis, I expected Mexico to play well. I was hoping they would play well to have a quality championship game, and they didn't disappoint me. I think the biggest factor was Marquez, getting them back in the lineup, John. I think he totally reorganized them in terms of their psychology, their shape, their organization at the back. So Mexico played well. And what I wanted to see was a good championship game. I think it was a tremendous game by the U.S.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, one thing you talk about, Marquez coming into the lineup changes the game. For me, Ricardo Clark coming into the lineup second half changes the game. But one thing that's always focused on in these two countries, 2 of the fittest countries in this Concacaf Gold Cup are on display in the final. Can they keep up the pace throughout the 90 minutes? I think that's what was everybody's mind, because it was hectic. I mean, they were fast, good ball movement as well, end-to-end action. It was a very exciting final.
Well, let's have a look at the US starting lineup, and Shep, having a look at who Bob Bradley chose to combat against Mexico. Was there any surprises in there at all?
Well, I think maybe the surprise for me and John was Brian Ching up front. He had to go with Jonathan Spector, Frankie Hayduck out of the lineup, and John, the rest of the lineup in the midfield.
Yeah, he had a lot of confidence in Pablo Mastroeni, kind of holding that defensive midfielder. But the one thing that I was very happy to see was Benny Feilhaber back on the pitch.
Yeah.
I know I've been pushing him throughout the tournament. He played in the first 3 games of group play. Was really not involved after that. Came in the match prior to the final for 10 minutes as a sub. But for me, good attacking player. And when you have guys like Donovan, who's been pushed out to the wing, or sometimes even up front with Dempsey out in the wing or whatever, Benny Feilhaber really attacks through the midfield. I like him on the ball.
Well, a baptism of fire for Spector, of course, after Hayduck was out. But he competed very well, and I think he had an excellent game, Shep.
Yeah, there's no question. He did. And both the young guys that played at outside back, I was worried about them. Bornstein at left back, very young, very inexperienced at the international level. Spector did a good job. And you know, back to John's point, he's been pushing Feilhaber the entire tournament. I was, John, a little worried about the inexperience. Turns out this is going to be a game that kid's never going to forget.
Oh, absolutely not.
All right, well, if we have a look at Mexico's lineup, one name that we're all expecting to be there in the semi-final, he wasn't there, but he's there for the final, was Marquez, Shep.
Yeah, we already talked about him. Not 100% fit, had been injured playing for Barcelona, didn't even play in their last game, the last weekend in La Liga, but just having him in the lineup was good for this Mexican team.
Yeah, when you talk about the Mexican strength as well, you look at Salcido in the back coming forward, Pardo holding down the fort in the midfield, Borghetti up top is the really striker who's the target man, but Castillo, what a player, man. This boy turned it on for the final.
Well, interesting that Sanchez chose Castillo as opposed to, he's got Blanco there, and also, of course, Bautista was on the bench. Were you surprised at that at all, Shep?
Well, I was not. Again, John and I have usually agreed tactically in terms of some of the players. John questioned when Castillo was not in the lineup. I've seen him play a lot this year for Olympiacos in Greece. He's a wonderful player, so Hugo Sanchez putting him in the lineup, I mean, this guy made a difference in the game.
He made a difference, Shep, and it's about time that he put him in the lineup again, because whatever he's having in the squabbling, you know, in the dressing room, we did talk about the turmoil that's going on with this Mexican side, sorry. But Castillo is a different player. He's the one who takes the chances. He's the one who runs at people, tries to break them down in defense. And when you have a player like that on the pitch, you've got to be very concerned.
Well, the USA and Mexico have met twice in the final before of the Gold Cup. It's gone Mexico's way both times. Let's see how the US got on in this edition of the Gold Cup against Mexico.
Well, guys, we started out in the first half. Mexico had a lot of the ball, but the U.S. had some quality chances. John, that's one of the guys you like, coming out left back. Bornstein cracks it with the right foot.
Yeah, Bornstein, and then this one here, Benny Feilhaber, just finding Dempsey. Dempsey doing the back heel there, a little Cruyff, but Landon Donovan not directing it. It bounces back to Dempsey again, but look at Sanchez coming up big there, Shep. Yeah, great save.
I thought Sanchez played extremely well. This was a huge world-class save, point-blank shot. Touches it over. That was an agonizing, terrible moment in the game. hate to look at it, but John, look at the left leg of Borghetti.
Oh, when he goes there, the hamstring just pops. That's enough. It doesn't matter how much cold spray you get on that leg. It's not going to come back. That was agonizing, and it hurt the Mexican as well in terms of their attack going forward. But it didn't hurt him that bad because here's Castillo. This is what he's good at, taking on Gooch one-on-one to the back post. Guadardo, he's on the back post. He's going to finish that one. Mexico up 1-0 in the first half.
Yeah, we talked about confidence, and DeMarcus Beasley didn't do this. Castillo looked up, he saw Onyewu, took him on. That's just great individual play and then teamwork. Guadardo making the run at the far post. Nobody for the U.S. tracking back. Clint Dempsey should have been there to cover.
Yeah, he should be coming back on that right-hand side. But again, look at Castillo. He's the one that makes a difference in the game. Has enough courage and energy to take a player on, opens it up straight away. Hey, compromises everybody else's position. There's a goal.
Well, if we look at the first half stats, it was Mexico 1-0 over the US. Apart from that, a fairly tight game. Now, gentlemen, how much of an impact do you think Marquez coming back in had in that first half of the game? I'll start with you, Shep.
Yeah, I think he had a dramatic effect on the Mexican team. John and Dennis, that Mexican team really, I thought, dominated in terms of possession. They started out with great energy. First minute of the game, Jonathan Spector had a ball. Castillo pressured him, so he couldn't release it. So that Mexican team was flying. Having said that, the U.S. probably had the better quality chances. Aside from the Castillo run down the right flank that created the goal, the U.S. had quality chances. Sanchez made big saves.
Yeah, he did make big saves. When you talk about the first half and you look to break it down, Shep, we did notice as well about 5-6 minutes into the game that Mexico was doing a low pressure from the midfield area. They were letting the U.S. have the ball in the back. They weren't too threatened by that, and they didn't high press at all. But what they did do well, Mexico, is they actually got in behind quite a few times behind the U.S., getting balls in the box, which were dangerous. The U.S. on the other side, they were able to get the ball forward at times through Benny Feilhaber, the connecting through the Bornstein, which we saw already, and then also the chances with Dempsey up front. Dempsey, for me, was not involved in the first half at all. Not only was his energy level poor, but his movement off the ball, his work rate coming back, which I think kind of hurt the U.S. Absolutely did hurt. I don't think anything. It hurt the U.S. in the first half to go 1-0 down. And Shep makes a very good point. 42nd minute in the game, Beasley has an opportunity to go one-on-one, does not take the one-on-one, elects to pass it off in the responsibility. 2 minutes later, there's Castillo taking the one-on-one, getting into the back post, and that's what's led to the goal.
Well, one thing that John Harkes constantly has mentioned about this Mexican side is how they hunt in numbers, how they hunt in packs, and that was highly evident in this particular match against the USA.
But when we talk about Mexico's defense, we talk about them hunting in numbers and packs, and this is what I mean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 players, plenty enough behind the ball, good compact, very cohesive. The only place for Chingy to go, out wide. They're showing him away from the goal. Very good defensive shape. Again, just take a look at this. Look at the numbers there. Plenty of players around the ball. This is great from Mexico. They shut down the space. They're not giving USA any space at all to really turn and go at goal. Chingy has nowhere else to go but towards the line. They've done their job. We talk about hunting in packs. Also, look at this man-to-man marking. Plenty of players in here. Good positioning, good balance, just in case they pick it up. Now, look at this in Mexico. Plenty of players for the counterattack and the transition, and they do this very well. In the first half, they were very dominant. Castillo, again, just to show you, look at the players. Everybody's got their man. They are well marked up. And here comes the tackle in from behind as well. These are players that are looking to get around the ball, hunting in packs. They close the space down. They do it quickly. They shut you down quick.
John, I've got to ask you, because it must be an intimidating feeling. Or no, actually, I'll ask you, what does it feel like when you've got 4 guys all running at you and you're sitting there going, okay, what am I doing here?
Well, it's a very threatening position to be in, really, on the defensive side, because all of a sudden it happens in a split second, Dennis, and it's so quick that they shut down your options and basically they force you to turn the ball over. If you're smart, you can accept that pressure. You have a little bit of composure, but you know, more percentage is going to be for the Mexicans when they do that, and they do it in pack Shep very well. I mean, they really do shut you down, and they also, not only do they shut you down towards the middle of the field, Dennis, they're also looking to push you wide to the sideline and use the sideline as another defender, so it even becomes harder.
Did you freak out the first time it happened to you?
No, no, I did very well, actually.
You know what he did,
I
Dennis?
remember actually 2, 3 nutmegs, and then I chipped it over the top. I think it was to Joe Max Moore and went through and hit the bar.
Well, Dennis, what John did, and it's true, when you face that kind of pressure, you can't play through pressure. You can't play around it. You have to think and play quickly. So John, when he has 4 Mexican players converging on him, he plays one-touch soccer, puts 4 guys out of position, somebody else is open, and that's really what you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to play one-touch soccer, but as John pointed out in the first half, this Mexican team was cohesive. They were tracking back. They were hunting in packs. They did a great job, and they went into the locker room with a lead.
Yep. Well, speaking of thinking quickly and tons of speed to boot, Nery Castillo, fantastic decision by Sanchez to start him in the first half.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, you can see he was getting the ball early as well, Dennis. This is where he became very dangerous. And look, he compromised so many positions in the back line now. Who's going to mark him? Who's going to double team him? Who's going to show him inside, outside? Just look at the freedom he has here. Great skill on the ball as well. You know, enough. Hey, at least he's going away from goal. The U.S. are doing that well. But look, he continues to go. And this is a guy who's very dangerous. He opened up the game. And he drew fouls as well, Shep, which led to free kicks, which was dangerous for Mexico.
Yeah, John, you always talk about it, that player that can change a game by taking another player on. Castillo did that the entire game. This time he gets the ball a little bit wide, drills it. That doesn't miss far post by much. But the speed, the quick first step, the skill on the ball, this guy was a dynamite player in the first half.
A dynamite player, and it led to them getting the first goal. And this is what happens. Hey, when a player opens up the game like that, great skill to get by Gooch here. Slips it through to the back post. Guardado almost missed that one, but he put it away anyway.
Yeah, he created opportunities for his teammates. That's Castillo again, top of the box, smacking it with a left foot. That didn't miss by much. Brilliant first 45 minutes for him.
Well, you have to ask, really, why wasn't he in the last game? I mean, was Sanchez saving him with all his energy for the final? Was it a surprise element thing, or basically was it just because those two butted heads and he said, I'm not going to put you on the pitch? So we saw quotes as well after the game against Guadeloupe. He said, well, if I'm not good enough to play against Guadeloupe, I might as well just get home. And you know, maybe that sent a message back to the manager. I mean, you don't want to be an individual and digress from any situation and distract the players. But he was very disgruntled, and obviously, you know, the reversal and putting him back on the field that made wonders to the Mexican side.
Well, Castillo was also aided by a little bit, and tell me if this is fair to say, a little bit of disorganisation by the US at the back, John.
A little.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very fair to say.
Okay, all right. I just didn't want, didn't want to be mean because I'm not out there doing it, whereas you guys do. But if we have a look at the USA, yes, a lot of disorganisation at the back of the park for the USA in the first half of this match.
Well, if one thing that Mexico did quite well was, hey, making the most on their set plays. Plenty of players marked up in the box here, but unfortunately, Marquez is finding space. He's losing his marker, and he gets a free header here on goal. Challenge, yes. Bocanegra has his man. Unfortunately, not for long as he ball watches and starts to advance towards the upper part of the field. Hey, you can't leave that space until the ball's taken care of. Don't leave Marquez alone. He is dangerous. Again, we will see plenty of players marked up, right? The pick is probably played in there. Marquez, this is a set play. He's finding space. You cannot let an international player like that with his experience get a free header on the box. Look at that. And I'll tell you what, Tim Howard is not happy at all. After this ball, fortunately for the U.S., goes over the bar, he is yelling, who is going to mark this player up? This play here, Castillo, very dangerous. We saw him taking on Gooch. Look at this, great play. Hey, and there's the danger area in the space. You've got to have somebody marking up in behind, cover and balance. Unfortunately, the U.S. did not recover quick enough. Guardado on the back post to kill this ball in the back of the net. Again, we'll see this again. Look at Gooch. He commits to him defending-wise. Castillo does a good job. There's Bocanegra. There's our man in the back here. Jonathan Spector left on his own. You cannot leave the back post unmarked. Hey, Dempsey, get back. Mark up.
Guys, that's a great analysis by John, a dissection of the defensive woes of the U.S. team in the first half. And I think Bob Bradley recognized it as well, John. He couldn't do anything with the back four, but he made a change at halftime that I think was the biggest move of the match.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ricardo Clark, he made a big difference coming in the second half, Dennis.
However, one thing on a positive note that I think the US did very well in that first half is they did create some opportunities so that they weren't totally shut down by the Mexican Shep.
Yeah, it was a little inexplicable to me because I felt that out of the midfield, Landon Donovan, who had spent most of the Gold Cup tournament playing out wide right, he played centrally. Clint Dempsey played out wide right, DeMarcus Beasley left, and I thought the three of them did not have a first good 45 minutes. Having said that, John, they still created a couple of bang-bang opportunities. If not for Sanchez, who made some wonderful saves, the U.S. would have scored.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it was against the run of play, Shep, because Mexico did quite well in the first half. And then, look, there was some positive play, like Dennis said, and we were just talking about it a little bit here. This one here off a throw-in, basically Spector's getting in. Here's the one flick. The two flick, and this is a good play by Landon Donovan. Look, just gets down the line, early ball into the box. Unfortunately, though, for Beasley, his first touch is a little bit away from him, but there's Sanchez big again.
Yeah, the U.S. did have those opportunities again. Look at the players and then look at their movement.
Yeah, and this is a switch here. This is when Dempsey went up top, 31st minute, and Landon Donovan came back out, Shep. That's exactly what you were talking about. That's the difference. And I think from that point on, the U.S. a little bit more continuity and really combination play getting forward. Landon came out to the right side. Dempsey went up front with Ching, and they kind of tried to link off with each other. Having said that, Dempsey, really quiet game. Didn't do well.
Yeah, you're being kind.
I know. I am being kind. He didn't do well at all.
Very quickly, gentlemen, overall feeling of the first half, John?
Overall feeling of the first half, exciting game. U.S. started brightly. No, I'm sorry, Mexico started brightly. Mexico came at the U.S. I think the U.S. responded only probably a half an hour afterwards in the first half, and then they picked up on some points here and there. They did exploit the Mexican back line in some transition plays, and that, I think, was Benny Fieldhopper sending some balls through. But look, overall, Mexico were up 1-0. I think they dominated the first half.
All right, well, as we saw, Mexico leading 1-0 at the halfway stage. When we come back, we have a look at the US effort to get back into the game of the second half of the Gold Cup final.
At the Gatorade Sports Science Institute, we test athletes in the lab. Because we know they'll be tested on the field. Gatorade, the most tested sports drink on the planet.
Work like a pro. Play like a pro. Tackle tough jobs. Dominate the game. Destroy the competition. Go professional. Choose Makita.
Welcome back to Inside the Gold Cup. Yes, a very special show today. The final, the review of the final between the USA and Mexico. And as we saw at the halfway stage, the USA trailing Mexico 1-0. Well, Shep, what were you hoping for at halftime that the US would do in the second half?
Well, first of all, I was hoping for another good second half of the game. My concern for the U.S. team was what we illustrated before. You know, some defensive breakdowns. Knew Bob Bradley had to make a move. Actually, my sidekick, John Harkes, predicted it. Turned out to be the right move. He had a choice, you know, leave Feilhaber in the game, take out Mastroeni, who had picked up a yellow card. And I thought, you know, Bradley making that move to Ricardo Clark changed the whole nature of the second half.
Yeah, I think so as well. And Dennis and Shep, I think the one thing is, like, you looked at Pablo, and he does a good job. I mean, he recovers the ball well, he gets stuck in, but there was a fatigue factor as well that was included there, and he seemed to be running out of gas. From that central part of the field there, you need the energy, and I think Ricardo Clark, not only did he bring the energy, but he won the ball in midfield, and he linked up really well with Benny Fieldhopper, and he picked his spots very well to get forward. And when he got forward, he opened up the game, and that was the difference for me.
Well, the USA has never come back to beat Mexico after trailing them in the history of the two nations. Let's see how they rewrote the history books. Here's the second half.
We talked about the U.S. team coming out with a different energy, John, in the second half. Here's a good ball played wide right into the box by Spector. This, a signature moment in the game. Brian Chang, referee says penalty kick.
Well, what he does so well here is just receiving the ball, using his body. He's nice and big, and he just turns and rolls off the defender. Hey, they collide knees, and he's down. And now, hey, Landon Donovan steps up. Fourth penalty. I mean, what's going on there?
Finally, he takes one well. And Sanchez knew at the previous three, he drills right in the center of the goal. It's a mind game. Sanchez doesn't commit, thinks Landon's going center again. And Landon, that was the best penalty kick he took in the whole tournament. By the way, I don't think it should have been a PK on Cheng. Look at this collision. Spector, Guardado.
Oh, that was a terrible moment in the game, really. You just hope that both of them are all right. But here's a brilliant moment. Benny Feilhaber. The ball comes out on a clearance, and look who it falls to. Watch this tactical volley. Brilliant technique. How do you like it in the back of the net? Thank you very much. Seals the deal.
Well, I'll tell you what, that young man is never going to forget this game. Mexico didn't quit, though. Look at this ball bouncing around Batista, and there's Tim Howard. That's the save of the game by him.
Absolutely. And, Shep, how do you not bury that chance, really? Batista, he comes in as a substitute. Tim Howard standing up strong, and Bob Bradley is one happy man. 10-0-1 throughout the tournament, 10-0-1 for the year. I mean, he is fantastic. He's happy.
Well, again, looking at the stats, the USA victorious over Mexico 2-1, and looking at most of the stats, again, it stayed fairly even in the second half. Just Mexico with a few more shots on goal. Now, gentlemen, one thing I did read about Mexico, heavily criticised about how late Blanco and Batista was brought into the game. When you look at how much impact they had on the last few minutes. John, putting your coaching hat on, would you have brought them in a little bit earlier?
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, Dennis. You know,
yeah, fair call.
Having said that, yeah, I mean, I think the game was crying out for it. I mean, basically, Blanco is the type of player which we talked about, Shep and I beforehand, that he can cause trouble because he's never a stationary guy. He's very mobile, not as quick as he used to be, but he's going to drift into different positions, and he cheats a little bit. So when he does that, it's harder to mark, and players' positions get compromised in the back line. And so they also get compromised in the defensive midfield role. So yeah, they should have been on earlier.
Now, for the USA, how do you get the momentum going? You're trailing 1-0, you get into the second half, and it just seemed to all happen for them. How do you inspire that, Shep, on the park?
Well, I think it's, you know, your circle the wagons mentality. We haven't talked a lot about Soldier Field, capacity crowd, unbelievable. But let's face it, it's America playing in America in front of a hostile crowd. That was a Mexican crowd. So I think in the locker room at halftime, John, you know as a coach, all Bob Bradley is getting the guys to think about is, hey, guys, go get the next goal. All we care about is the next goal. Then it's a different game. They came out energized. I think the Ricardo Clark substitution, as John pointed out, not only strong in the defensive part of the midfield, a better ability to get forward than Pablo Mastroeni, and he made a difference. But obviously that U.S. team was together. They came out with one mindset, John, in the second half. And that's why I criticize Hugo Sanchez. The first 10 minutes of the second half, you could tell the U.S. was pressing the game. That's when Sanchez should have gone to the bench.
Yeah, I agree. And Sanchez actually, not only should he have gone to the bench, but he also, in terms of their mindset, dropped off a little bit more and gave the U.S. more time and space to pick them off. And that changed the game. One thing I noticed both you gentlemen commented on is when it came to the crunch, Landon Donovan took a superb penalty, John. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, he's never scored in the run of play throughout this tournament, which is kind of, you know, you don't want to focus on the negative. What he did do is he stepped up, he was courageous, and he finished very well in this particular game. So it was good finish for him. You know, it was very important. Yeah, because I noticed Sanchez, yeah, he had done his homework, stood his ground, stayed in the middle, but no, he planted it to the right there. Now, having a look at some of the comments that Sanchez made, he said that Mexico were happy to lose the way they lost, giving it everything on the field. And it was quite evident at the end of the game they had nothing left, Shep, and it was a game contested like that by both sides.
Yeah, you know, it's hard. I don't want to dissect the comments of Hugo Sanchez. John and I have talked about it before. I think he had trouble with this Mexican team, John. You talked about Castillo. Castillo saying, if I can't play against Guadalupe, you know, send me home. Yeah. He had the same problem with Salcido, who I think is a very good player. You know, a brilliant season again in Holland for PSV. And he was put into one of the earlier games with 9 minutes left in the game. And Salcido said, hey, to Hugo Sanchez, look, if you're going to put me in the last 8 minutes, I'll go home too. So I think Sanchez struggled with his team. In the end, though, I do agree that they gave a good performance. They have nothing to be ashamed about Mexico in that championship game.
Yeah. Now, we've mentioned Grandel, we mentioned Tiragano in terms of goalkeepers, but one goalkeeper that was outstanding, previously untested but was tested, and when it counted, he made a huge impact on the game. Howard, Shep.
Yeah, we've talked about this goalkeeping, you know, in an even game, does a goalkeeper make a difference? Sometimes the toughest games for a goalkeeper are those games when you're really not tested. This is just a nothing save, totally easy for Tim, just touches it over. Here a little collision, the foul called against Borghetti, but Tim was really never challenged in the game, but mentally, John, he stayed alert. Physically, he kept himself in the game, and when it really counted, he came up with the big save that he needed. That one was going wide of the near post anyway. He touches it aside, but tough for a goalkeeper to stay in a game and make one big world-class save right there that gave his team the win.
I agree, Shep, and it's the hardest thing, and you know this better than anybody. In terms of that position, you've got to be focused. You've got to keep yourself alert and your wits about you, and because when that one time comes, man, you never know. It could be a breakdown in defense. It could be a chance just like Bautista had there. That's the difference in the game. And he stood up strong and made the save, and that secures the win.
And both goalkeepers played well.
Yeah.
Well, looking at Spector and Gardado's collision, John, you've ever been knocked out head-to-head or anything like that?
I have, actually, yeah. I've been knocked out in the English Premier League with Sheffield Wednesday. I've been also knocked out with Derby County 2 years later. So it's not fun. And when you don't have your wits about you, you know, it's very dangerous. We just hope that both players are okay.
Yeah.
He was knocked out last week in New Jersey.
Shep, you must have, as a goalkeeper, you put your body on the line all the time.
Yeah, actually, only one time I was knocked unconscious. I think John would know the player, older than him, Peter With. Peter With, an English player. Our corner kick caught me in the back of the head with an elbow, and I didn't know anything. I was out unconscious, woke up, carried off, woke up in the locker room. So
you mean last night?
Yeah, that was the night before.
Last night, right? Okay, never mind.
But you look, John, there were a couple of key plays from the US that really turned the game around, a couple of very, very positive movements from them that turned the game for the US.
Yeah, well, Dennis, when we talk about like the Mexican team actually doing quite well in the first half and then US coming back in the second half, there were little moments throughout the game where I thought there was some positive play from the US, this being one of them here. Ricardo Clark's back, you know, in the second half. He's picking up the ball here. Great position. He's reading the game well. Look at Benny Feilhaber. That's a skill and just a vision just to kind of see Ching there running in behind. That opens up the game, makes them worry in the back line. Again here, look, this ball here, Ricardo Clark. This is 2 minutes into the second half. 2 minutes now. Picking up this ball and advancing forward. Hey, and he's getting the ball out wide to Landon. Landon, great early ball, first timer into the box. And there's Ching, creating all kinds of havoc. Look at this one, breaking up here. Dempsey again, Sanchez standing tall. But that is the type of thing that really opens up the game. Now this, defensively, Beasley, Ricardo Clark. We talked about him, Shep, going forward. Now let's see what he does here on the defensive side of shape. Beasley holds up this player, goes out one-on-one, slows the game down. But where's Ricardo Clark? He leaves his man and goes over. He makes a decision to double team him. This is the difference in the second half. The U.S. didn't do this quite well at all in the first half.
Yeah, those are great examples, John, of young players doing well. Look at that early ball into the box. That was Beasley. Here's the spin. And now this was the inability of the U.S. to put this game away. I don't know how Ching misses that.
Yeah, he's a bit off balance here. He does very well to get on the end of the first ball, like you said. Yep. You know, great ball by Beasley to see that good vision like he did in the World Cup as well when he set up Dempsey for the only U.S. goal. But here's the situation now. Ching, he's got to have the determination and the courage not only to do well by beating the goalkeeper, he's off balance and he can't finish that. The conviction, that's what was missing in the U.S., I think, throughout the tournament, just that conviction in playing the final third. One
thing with the U.S. and the Copa America emerging, in terms of finishing games off, we saw that chance with the Marcus Beasley at the end and Landon Donovan. That could cost you, particularly when you've got the likes of Colombia and Argentina. You can't let those ones go, Shep.
Well, you know, again, this is a U.S. team, a national team that we've talked about in transition. It's no longer Bruce Arena's team, it's Bob Bradley's team. So we're seeing new players take pivotal roles. I mean, John touted Feilhaber. This kid's for real. So these are young players that are coming into the team. Clint Dempsey, I did not think had a good Gold Cup tournament. So this team will evolve. In the end of the day, and John knows it, you got to have that hunger to put a game away.
Yeah, and I agree with Shep. I don't think we can be too negative in terms of like what they've done. Hey, look, the U.S. has gone through and won the Gold Cup final.
Congratulations.
Okay? Yeah, and they beat Mexico, and they did it in decent form. I think that throughout the games, they've shown that there's a lot of depth in this side. Bob Bradley has some players they can choose from that can step in and do a good job.
Yes, the USA victorious over Mexico. 2-1 the final score. They won it in 2005. They won it in 2007. Back-to-back championships for them. And when we come back, more from the final.
Work like a pro. Play like a pro. Tackle tough jobs. Dominate the game. Destroy the competition. Go professional. Choose Makita.
Through the Football for Hope movement, FIFA is committed to protecting children and their rights, furthering social integration and peace and reconciliation. Football for Hope champions health promotion and anti-discrimination. FIFA is firmly committed to using football to resolve some of the most pressing social challenges of our time. Football can change the world.
If you are looking for technical analysis, you have come to the right show. Yes, this is Inside the Gold Cup, the final, which covers the 2007 Gold Cup final. Dennis Katsanos is my name. With me, Shep Messing, John Harks. How are you going?
Hello, Dennis. How are you, son?
Lovely, lovely. Now, tell me, one thing, and look, I've looked, as you know, and we've stated, I've never played at the professional level, but I have played.
Who said that?
No, it's true. I have played a bit of football, and when we lose a cup match, if you lose, you stand there and applaud the team that won, and you suck it up.
Yes,
you know?
you do, yeah.
And if you're the team that won, you make sure you rub it in, or you make sure you
I know where you're
celebrate
going
extra
with
loud.
this.
Now, one thing I noticed, and I don't know if this was on the television coverage or the cameras, is Mexico walked off. And I think that's very poor sportsmanship, Shep.
Yeah,
I was really disappointed.
Dennis, I agree with you. I think it puts a little bit of a tarnish on what otherwise was a brilliant Gold Cup. And I think at all levels, and John, you've been there, I've been there, you know, when the game's over, traditional handshake, you know, exchange jerseys, certainly don't walk off the field while the winning team gets their medals. I was disappointed in the behavior of the Mexican coach, Hugo Sanchez, in the players to walk off the field as well.
I agree. I just think that you know, that's something that you don't want to draw focus to.
No.
You want to be able to say that it was a fantastic final. Both teams competed. It was a very high-paced game as well, which was entertaining for the fans. But you don't want that to be like Shep said, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You walk away from it saying it was classless. I mean, that performance.
Yeah.
You should have a little bit more dignity in terms of being a gentleman for the game and respect your opponents and just slap hands and say, all right, well done, you know. And unfortunately, that didn't happen on the Cup final.
I'm very surprised. I've never seen it before.
Well,
so.
by the way, I mean the comments, and I'm not condoning it in any way.
No, that's just
and
me.
it doesn't take away from a great Gold Cup tournament. Hugo Sanchez, who was a very temperamental coach, later on met with Bob Bradley as they were both going to the buses, congratulated him, hugged him, shook hands, was a gentleman. I wish he had done that right on the field after the game, but he said all the right things later. So maybe he's just so feisty and temperamental, and it doesn't take away from what was a great tournament. And if anything, John, you know, this only enhances the existing rivalry between Mexico and the U.S.
It'll always be there.
Now, I did see a few Mexican delegates, and I think Sanchez was out there for the actual trophy, Shep. But look, do you think that the balance of power has changed here in Concacaf? Since 2000, the USA has not lost on US soil, and they seem to have the ascendancy at this point in time over Mexico, Shep.
Yeah, I think clearly it has. And if you look at CONCACAF right now, I believe that the U.S. is the #1 team. They're the strongest team in CONCACAF. Mexico's right there. Canada's creeping up. So, you know, that balance of power is always going to shift. And I don't know what the signature moment is when it became the U.S., but it's been happening for the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, definitely. I think the U.S. is on top now in terms of not only just results, but just in style of play. The U.S., when you look at them, at least they're exciting. They're going forward. They're starting to defend well. The one thing they still got to tweak is, like what Shep said, is a transition stage there where they've got to get a little bit more experience in that back line. If they can do that, I think that they're going to be more formidable going forward.
Yeah, and definitely any team that can come back from behind and win a high-stakes game like that, I'm very impressed with. Now, the Confederations Cup 2009, the USA, of course, are off there. That was the big prize. That was the big ticket. And that is also, John, a fantastic competition for the US to be involved in.
Oh, it is. And, you know, the hardest thing, I think, right now is for Bob Bradley to kind of manage, you know, this, plus the Copa America, which is coming up. But to think long down the line, the Confederations Cup, it's a big honor to represent your country in that tournament, you know. So it's there's all this different possibilities that are going forward, which are positive.
Now, you mentioned the Copa America, John. The US, of course, they've just won the Gold Cup. They've had the whole tournament, or 19 days worth of tournament to play in. How do you readjust yourself to go into this tournament? And as I mentioned, a couple of teams that they're playing, Colombia and, of course, Argentina.
Well, I think John just alluded to it. It's an evolution, and it's going to be a totally different team that plays in the Copa America than we saw in this Gold Cup 2007. So I believe there are 15 players that play in Major League Soccer, a lot of young, untested players, and it's impossible, John, and you know it, you've done it, to play 2 back-to-back tournaments like this. Players need a break. That's the job of the national team coach, Bob Bradley, to tweak the lineup, give a whole set of new players the chance, the opportunity to play in Copa America.
I agree with you, Shep, and not just that, it gives a fresh blood, and like you said beforehand, there's going to be three players that are in there that haven't even been capped before at all. So you got players that aren't capped, you've got players that are young and maybe have 5 or 6 caps, and then you've got maybe a few players that have been there, seen it, and done it. And, you know, for me, it's very important to get Jimmy Conrad into this system. I would think that he was injured prior to the Gold Cup. Unfortunately, could not be listed on the roster with Bob Bradley in the U.S. side. But now he's getting the opportunity. He's healthy now. He'll be there in Copa America. I think Jimmy Conrad's a pretty solid defender.
What's the tournament like compared to the Gold Cup, playing in the Copa America, John?
Well, I think you know you're playing against teams, Dennis, that are a little bit higher caliber in terms of the quality of play. You know, you're playing on foreign soil as well. So, you know, there's a lot of different adversities that you've got to get through and challenge yourself and see what kind of test it's going to be for the U.S. It's going to be difficult.
Yeah, put it this way. I predict, and I never predict anything, but Bob Bradley is not going to remain unbeaten too much longer as a U.S. National team coach.
As a player, going into a tournament as a guest, does your mindset change a little bit and you think, okay, well, there isn't that much pressure to win this, or this isn't our confederation, we're just going there just for, I don't know, a bit of fun and a bit of a challenge?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's different, Dennis, when you go back to when we actually competed in 1995. It was a year just after the World Cup being hosted in the U.S. So for us, it was like, let's build on this. We did quite well in the U.S. Tournament here in the World Cup when it was based in this country. And then when we went to the Copa America, it was just kind of like, we've got something to prove. We've got to build on what we already had. We went out, we beat Argentina in 3-0 in the first game. That opened up everything for us. You know, we were able to defeat Chile, we beat Mexico, and we advanced on pretty far in that tournament. So for me, it was a good challenge. I think it's changed a little bit now because you're coming off the back end of this Gold Cup tournament, which was very important to Bob Bradley and the U.S. side.
Well, best of luck to all the sides in the Copa America. Of course, it starts on the 26th of June, goes right through till the 5th of July. Now, when we come back, we had a very nice privilege to talk to Sepp Blatter, who was attending the Gold Cup final between the USA and Mexico, and he very kindly spared about half an hour of his time. When we come back, his interview.
Gatorade Sports Science Institute. We test athletes in the lab. Because we know they'll be tested on the field. Gatorade, the most tested sports drink on the planet.
The screenings that happen here might be fun or dramatic, but it's not real life. There's another screening that is real life, and it could save your life. It's a screening test for colorectal cancer, the second leading cancer killer of men and women. Screening finds precancerous polyps so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. I got screened. Now it's your turn, so you can stick around and enjoy the show.
If you're 50 or older, get screened for colorectal cancer.
Here I am with the President of FIFA, Sepp Blatter. Firstly, Sepp, thank you very much for your time. Now, I noticed that you've been President of FIFA for almost 10 years. In your term as President, how have you seen the Concacaf region change?
When I'm looking at the competitions and I'm looking in the general organization, I have to say that in the last 10 years, they have made an immense progress. And specifically when now analyzing a little bit the Gold Cup and the tremendous interest, international interest in this 2007 competition, I can only say chapeau. It means a big, big compliment to the Concacaf leadership.
You're present, of course, the final is today between Mexico and the USA. You'll be present for that. Have you had time to follow many of the games leading up to this final?
Absolutely. I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Warner and Mr. Blazer about the good timing of this competition in the international calendar, and with the exception of the last round of the Premier League in Spain, all activities have practiced, football activities stopped. So therefore there was such a large space available, and I have to say the international press and not only the television or radio, but it was definitely the writing press, the print media. They have given such an importance to this competition, and they were right to do so, because it was really a very good competition in the sporting and technical sense, but also with the let's say the spectators. You have seen the number of spectators going in this so-called non-footballing country or not soccer country, US. What has happened here, and this is tremendous. I'm very happy to be the president of FIFA and to witness the final.
Well, it's been quite evident that the teams from Concacaf have gone from strength to strength over the last few years. One thing that the president, Jack Warner, has said is that he'd like to see a Concacaf team in the final of the World Cup. Do you think we could see that in the future? It
depends what you mean by soon. You know, if you take a millennium, then it's but it is it will be. It is a possibility, but you know, as long as in the World Cup we have the powerhouse of Europe with more than 12 or even 13 teams out of 32, it's already mathematically it is difficult that one of the team of a group where you have 3.5 or 4 slots to be even in a quarter or semi-final. But the quality of football in this region is as such that it is a possibility for the future. But at the same time, I tell you that Africa is doing now the same effort by saying we have the next World Cup in South Africa. We want to prove that we can be the world champion. So it's a good competition, and CONCACAF's powerhouses, and I'm sure the 2 finalists in this 2007 edition, they are powerhouses. They are able to create a surprise. And why not already in 2010 when we play in South Africa? It is winter time. It is a little bit spring on the beach, but when we go inside the country, it's a little bit cold. It can be compared to the World Cup 78 in Argentina.
Now, you mentioned surprises. Have you been surprised how much the Gold Cup has grown since you've been president of FIFA, since '98?
It's not a surprise for me when I know let's say, the enthusiasm, the energy, the quality and the tenacity of the leadership in CONCACAF to prove and improve. And therefore, it's not a surprise. It is I would say it is a normal achievement when you are in a situation where you have defined your objectives and you go towards these objectives, and then you can realize these objectives always and when you have the right people in the leadership. Yeah.
I noticed you grew up in Switzerland. Did you play as a younger man at all? Did you used to play football, or?
Yeah, I was playing football from my young age. I was still playing league football, but at amateur level, but the highest amateur level in Switzerland, up to the age of 38.
Oh.
And I'm still kicking a little bit the ball around. I was never a professional player because my father one day told me, "You will never earn your living in football." He was wrong. He was not a prophet. He was a good man, but not a prophet.
Do you boys ever kick a ball around in the office in Zurich?
No, but we have now sometimes we have to kick in the offices, but not with the ball. And we have in our new compound of the home of FIFA, we have now the soccer fields or football fields at disposal, and if I have not only the time, but sometimes you need it, I could just get down on the pitch and just touch a little bit the ball.
Where do you see the future of football?
I think the future of football is that we have to be aware that we have a social responsibility when it is the most popular game. Social responsibility means that we shall play a better part with our social, cultural, economic and political partners to be in our society as the game the worldwide game. Naturally, in the United States, it's very difficult to give this message because it's another culture, what football or what sports means here. But all around the world, and especially where football can be as a tool of hope, like in the Caribbean or like in Central America, where sometimes the development of the country can be helped with the development of the game.
One thing I've read about you when I've been doing my homework about you is that pretty much the referee is judge and jury on the pitch, and of course human error creeps into the game. Do you think in your term as presidency we might ever see maybe some technology creep into the game, like whether a goal is a goal or something with the offside rule, as we saw with the USA and Canada, a bit of a contentious issue with the offside there? Do you think we may see it in the future, or do you think you'll stick true to some of your statements that I was reading about last night when I was doing a little bit of homework on you?
I'm in favor of a goal line technology because it's so important to score a goal nowadays. And if there is a system which gives the accuracy to immediately indicate if it's goal or not goal. But when speaking about offside and the special situation, the US-Canada game, how can you reconstitute something? It is impossible, and we have to live with the errors. But we shall make a lot of efforts now to diminish these errors. We have to improve the refereeing, and improving the referee, we will start with a referees development program, not only for the top referees, but starting from the roots all around the world. This is, by the way, an initiative again from Concacaf coming towards FIFA, that we shall have a referees development program. And then on the top, we must have professional referees. In professional league, we need professional referees because then they are in their job and not in a pastime or in a hobby. And they will still make some errors. But the assistants, this is the problem, not the referee himself. And the assistants, they should be more involved in the game, and that they should feel the game, especially when it comes to offside. I was a striker always, and how many times I was called back, and I have said no, I was not in offside position. So, but this is but there was also moves forward. We shall now eliminate. Wave away, abolish offside, no more offside. If you take away the offside rule in our game, you take away the intelligence of tactics.
True. And it's also depending on which teams you support, the referee, you're either in favour of the call or you're not in favour. So it's a very tough job for them. But Mr. Blatter, thank you very much for your time. It was lovely talking to you, and hopefully we get to meet again soon.
With great pleasure. And to all the football fans, enjoy the game, but don't forget to enjoy life.
Work like a pro. Play like a pro. Tackle tough jobs. Dominate the game. Destroy the competition. Go professional. Choose Makita.
At the Gatorade Sports Science Institute, we test athletes in the lab. Because we know they'll be tested on the field. Gatorade, the most tested sports drink on the planet.
Welcome back to Inside the Gold Cup. Yes, as we saw an interview with the president of FIFA, Sepp Blatter. Gentlemen, he had a lot of positive things to say about Concacaf, and one thing, as we know, he's a staunch advocate for the referee as judge and jury on the field. However, I think it might have made him sort of bend a little bit. He said possibly, particularly when it comes to goal scoring, that he might allow some technology if it's almost 100% accurate or 99.9% accurate, he'll have a look at it for, you know, if the ball's crossed the line inside the goal. So maybe we might see some technology creep into football.
Well, I certainly think you had nothing to do with it. That you got him to bet. Second
Okay,
of all,
I didn't sway him, all right.
Second of all, how come you weren't dressed? The president of FIFA is wearing a shirt and a tie and a jacket, and you were casual. I don't understand.
I was wearing a very nice shirt and a very nice pair of pants, or slacks as you like to call them.
We had a great conversation, John and I did, with Sepp Blatter, and John, he's actually going to take, I think, a little bit of your advice into consideration.
Well, thank you for the support, by the way, because as soon as I said it, I thought he was going to look at me and walk away. We were talking about just in terms of taking away the cheating in terms of the diving and flopping over the pitch, and I said, look, is this something that you would consider talking to the Referees Association about in terms of, like, if they go down, then it's mandatory they have to stay off the field for 5 minutes. And we brought it up earlier in our show, Shep, and right away, Shep was right next to me, and Sepp looked at us, and Shep says, I think it's a good idea. And he said, well, I do too. so it was the backing, the support. We stuck together on it. So, hey, maybe he'll consider it. Who knows? But wonderful guy.
Yeah,
really humble and just really personable. I enjoyed his conversation.
People person, and he clearly, guys, as you know, enjoyed this Gold Cup 2007 tournament.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that was evident when he was just walking around and stuff, and people were stopping him to talk to him, and he was happy to stop to fans and members of the public alike.
Well, he stopped at the buffet. He stopped at the cocktail hour. But he's a guy. He's a man that loves football, and he's risen to this title. It's no accident. He's done a great job. It's a challenge to run the world's most popular sport. It's not an easy job.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But I think you have to have, Shep, not only your wits about you, the knowledge. You know, he's an intelligent guy, but I think he has great personality, and that's something that, like Dennis was talking about, he was stopping, he was talking, giving the time of day to people, like on the side of the stadium, inside the stadium, at the buffet bar, like you said, the cocktails, which he had many of. Never mind. But no, seriously, great personality, and really kind of like a guy that you could just sit down and have a chat with anywhere.
Yeah, and last thing is, John, you always talk about it. This guy has a passion for the sport.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's great to see.
All right. Well, Shep, should we have a look at your best 11? And I don't mean your best 11. I mean your best 11.
Well, let's do it.
This is Shep Messing's best 11.
Well, you know, tough choices. I like, again, this is the 11. If I had to win a game tomorrow, I'd have Salcedo, left back, Stalteri, Beloy, Bocanegra, Donovan, Pardo, Centeno, De Guzman in the midfield, Grandel in goal, and up top, Blas, Perez, and Pavone. I don't know how I came up with those two strikers, but again, where'd Marquez go? I thought I had Marquez. Anyway, a lot of great players in this tournament. That's what I go for.
I thought I had Marquez.
I did pick Marquez, but I guess he didn't make it to the finals.
He didn't make it. That slot that you put in there was way too late. I'm sorry, man.
Graphic man didn't want it. That's it changes it.
Okay.
And all right, well that was Shep's 11. John, let's have a look at your best 11.
Actually, I like Shep's 11. I've tweaked it maybe one or two spots there. Grandel again. I definitely agree with Shep Messing throughout the whole tournament. He spoke very highly of him. I had Frankie Haydick in there as the right back. Stalteri, Bocanegra, Salcedo as well. Frankie, because of his pace up and down the wing, scored a very important goal. Phil Hopper, Pardo, De Guzman, Centeno, Perez, and Pavone.
Good.
Okay, so I mean, for me, Benny, Phil Hopper, and Haydick, I think, made a difference in this U.S. side and took them to the final in different ways. And that's why when you talk about being most valuable player or making that top 11, you have to put them in there. You really do. Yeah, that's just my opinion. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you what, guys, when I'm just having a look at the technical study groups here, you're pretty much almost spot on. Maybe one or two players difference, but yeah, very nicely done. They've got Grandel, Beloy, Hastings, Haydock, Salcedo, Centeno, De Guzman, Mastrione, Pardo, and up the front, Pavone and Perez. So it's not bad. Very nicely done. Now, overall, what were your impressions from the tournament, Shep, looking at the whole tournament from start to finish?
I was impressed, Dennis, first of all, with the passion, really, with the flavor, the color, the passion, the different fan bases, from Haitians to Guatemala, Costa Rica, obviously Mexico, the U.S., I love the tournament. I think it was a good tournament. There were some stumbles along the way. I didn't think Mexico played well for much of the tournament. I think the U.S., was steady throughout the tournament. Some teams are going to be saying they got, had a bad ref's decision go against them, whether it's Panama or Canada. But at the end of the day, the two heavyweights made it to the final. It was an exciting game. It was a dramatic game, and that's all I look for in a tournament.
I agree. And when you think about it, Shep, from start to finish, like all the drama that was involved, whether you're being surprised by Guadeloupe, the minnows who've made it to, as far as they did, and then you're talking about the dramatic finish by the U.S. and the Mexican national teams. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, just to end the way it did. For me, I agree with Shep in terms of the passion. You saw it in the colors and the flavor of the tournament. But the one thing, again, in which it proves all over the world, is that even in Concacaf, you can bring football, brings people together. And we saw that in the fan base and the support throughout this tournament. It's been brilliant. They exposed the game tremendously. Concacaf, I think they did a great job of hosting this in the U.S. in the stadiums. And it just showed that we have the fan support out there.
In terms of the quality of football, John, were you impressed by it?
At times I was, Dennis. I'll be honest with you. There was other times where I was a little bit disappointed. I think sometimes the referee actually stood out too much in some of the matches and took over the control of the game. But in terms of the quality of some of the players, I think the cream rises to the top. And you saw U.S. and Mexico in the final and the U.S. on top. And that's what I'm talking about. Stick that in your pipe, man.
First of all, he's my guy, and I was only rooting for Mexico, John, because I wanted us to beat a good team, and they did put on a good performance in the end, and that makes the U.S. victory sweeter. In terms of the quality of the soccer, I agree with John. There were some individual moments of brilliance. There was good competition, which is what we want to see. We even had the pleasure of bringing the Kiwi from New Zealand to come host the show. So, life is good.
Life is good. And we had that competition in here as well, and the quality in the show. Dennis, great to work with you, and Shep as well. Pleasure. It's been fantastic.
Well, and this is putting you a little bit on the spot, but in terms of the future, where could you see the tournament going in 2009?
I don't know, but I could see us taking it to a high new level. I mean, this show has been fantastic. The producers, everybody in the staff has been fantastic. Hey, look, with the U.S. side, I think the only way is up. Bob Bradley, fresh, new faces, like Shep said. A lot of competition for spots. People looking out there trying to prove their point. Hey, they can do very well moving forward to the next World Cup.
Well, I'll tell you what, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity to do it again. On behalf of myself, Shep, John, our whole production team that have worked tirelessly through the night. There's about 20 or 30 people you don't see that are running around the back, and also all our friends, our good friends at Concacaf, and all the management and staff that have provided everything that we've needed. A big thank you, and hopefully we'll see you at the 2009 Gold Cup. From us, it's goodbye.
The reproduction, distribution, publication, modification, public display, public performance, or transmission of this broadcast in any manner, in whole or in part, without the express written consent of Concacaf, is strictly prohibited.